Have you ever imagined what it was like to wake up in a Roman camp, put on your armor and feel like you were wearing not only protection, but also respect? It wasn't just the sword, not just the shield. It was the whole, the look, the technique, the weight of the story on your shoulders. Today you will understand why every detail of the Roman uniform was designed to command respect, create discipline, and win. So it is. The helmet, called Galea, it wasn't just to protect the head from blows. He was almost like a soldier's calling card. Whoever saw it knew. This man is trained, he is dangerous, and he has a role within the legion. And the most interesting thing is that these helmets said a lot about the person wearing them. Some had crests made from horsehair or feathers, placed there not for vanity, but to show who was in charge. A commander, for example, wore a horizontal crest to be seen by soldiers from afar. It was like a light in the smoke of battle. Furthermore, the Galea had side flaps that covered the cheeks and sometimes even a neck protection. But everything was thought out carefully. To protect, yes, but also to not obstruct vision or breathing. Basically, the helmet was the first piece that said, "Today is the day to fight, and I'm ready." Wait a minute. Before continuing, I need your help. YouTube will only share this video with more people if it gets a lot of interaction. In other words, without your comment, this knowledge could be buried and never reach those who need it. If this content makes sense to you, comment 1. If you disagree, comment 0 and tell me why. I want to see at least 100 comments here so YouTube understands that this subject needs to be spread. So comment now and be part of this mission to reveal the secrets of ancient Rome. After putting on the helmet and feeling the weight of responsibility came the piece that gave that feeling of power in the chest, the larica segmentata. She wasn't just pretty, she was smart. Unlike many armors of the time, which were made with large, heavy plates or just leather, this one was assembled as if it were an iron puzzle. Overlapping plates attached with leather straps that adjusted to the soldier's body. And do you know the most curious thing? It allowed movement. The legionnaire could raise his arms, turn his torso, move forward, backward, all without looking like a robot in a cast. And yet, he was protected. It was the perfect balance between defense and mobility. This armor was proof of how strategic the Romans thought. It wasn't enough to be strong, it was necessary to be functional. And the larica gave that. Freedom to fight, protection from falling at the first arrow, and an appearance that commanded respect. After all, when 100 soldiers marched with these signs shining in the sun, the enemy trembled just looking at them. Now imagine yourself on the battlefield, screams, dust, spears flying. At this time, there is nothing more valuable than a good shield. But the shield Roman, it wasn't just good. He was brilliant. Unlike the round shields of other peoples, the scutum was large, curved, almost like a door, and protected from the head to the knees. Just by staying behind him, the soldier already gained a huge advantage. But the true power of scutum came when the soldiers came together. Have you ever heard of turtle? It was a formation where the shields literally turned into a turtle shell. Those in front protected from direct attacks, those on top protected against arrows, and those on the sides closed in like walls. It was a walking fortress, but it wasn't just defense. With the shield, the soldier also pushed, unbalancing the enemy and opening space to attack with the gladius. It was strength and strategy in one object. It is no exaggeration to say scutum saved lives and also built victories. If the shield was the wall, the sword, it was the blade that passed between the gaps. Now, unlike the long, heavy swords we see in medieval films, the gladius was short, straight to the point. It was between 50 and 60 centimeters, the ideal size to use in the grip of a real battle, where there was no time or space for flourishes. And the most interesting thing is that the gladius was not made to spin in the air. It was designed to drill. Yes, that's right. The Roman technique was based on quick, precise blows right in the middle of the enemy's belly or between the ribs. No messing around. It was the kind of weapon that didn't make any noise or fuss, but it did the trick. With the shield pushing and the gladius acting soon after, the Roman soldier transformed into a lethal machine. And all of this, with almost surgical efficiency, the gladius even became a symbol of Rome's power. Not because of its appearance, but because of what it represented: discipline, method, and a very practical way of dealing with the chaos of war. It was small, discreet, and stayed there, attached to the belt. But the punch, the Roman dagger, carried a symbolic weight that many people cannot even imagine. Of course, in practice, it served as a last chance. If the gladius fell, if the shield was lost, if the fight turned into a desperate hand-to-hand, the pugio was the last defense. A weapon to face the enemy up close when everything else had failed. But there was something deeper behind that short blade. Many soldiers carried the pugio with a certain pride. It was almost a personal emblem, a mark of honor. Some daggers had engraved details, inscriptions, symbols. At times, even senators carried one, not to fight, but as a sign of status. And there are those who say that in certain cases, the pugio was used for the soldier to take his own life if he fell into disgrace. In a culture where honor was everything, this was part of the tough mentality of the Roman army. Small, yes, but the pugio said a lot about what it meant to be a man of Rome, ready to face the enemy, and also his own shortcomings. It may seem strange to say this, but in Rome, even the belt was part of the war. The cingulum. It was more than an accessory to fasten the tunic or carry the sword. He was a symbol, a sound, a presence. When a legionnaire walked, the clang of the belt, with its dangling leather straps and metal plates, announced that a trained man was passing. That sound was not for nothing. It served to command respect, both within the camp and in conquered cities. It was as if he were saying, "I am part of the Roman war machine. Don't forget that." Furthermore, the cingulum helped distribute the weight of weapons, especially the gladius and pugio, and each soldier personalized his own with his own details, creating an identity down to the smallest elements. But there was one very serious thing about that belt. Being forced to take it off in public was one of the greatest humiliations for a legionary. It was like being torn from the legion, like losing the right to be called a soldier. In other words, the cingulum didn't just hold the equipment, he sustained the honor. When we think of a soldier, we usually imagine shining armor, huge shields. But few stop to think about what was on these warriors' feet. And look, the boots, the Roman military sandals, deserve respect. They looked simple, interlocking leather straps, securely fastened to the foot and ankle. But the secret was in the sole, stacked with metal nails. These nails weren't just for firmness. They helped keep the grip on the ground, prevented slipping, and even turned into weapons for well-placed kicks. With them, soldiers marched through deserts, mountains, forests, and stone roads. They were resistant, ventilated, and allowed the foot to last long distances without getting stuck in something stuffy. After all, an army that crosses the world needs footwear to match. And there's more. The Caligae even became a nickname. Emperor Gaius Julius Caesar Germanicus was called Caligula, which means little boot, because as a child, he wore a miniature of these sandals in the camps with his father, who was a general. In other words, these sandals not only supported empires, they also left footprints in history. If this content is making sense to you so far, do the following. Give me a signal. Comment 1 below so I know you're with me on this journey. And remember, YouTube only spreads this knowledge if there is a lot of interaction. If you haven't commented yet, now is the time. I want to see this video full of opinions so that this topic continues to reach more people. You know that belt that goes across the chest in old warrior movies? This wasn't just aesthetics. In the Roman world, he had a name: belt. More than securing. The gladius in the right place, the balteus balanced the weight of the soldier's equipment, and it was no small feat. Sword, dagger, sometimes even a bag with basic supplies. This belt was essential to keep everything in place without hindering movement. But the baltos was also a symbolic line that cut across the soldier's body as if to say, "Here begins duty." By putting on this belt, the legionnaire was arming himself, physically and emotionally, for combat. It was the last adjustment before marching off to war, and losing the Baltius was a sign of shame. Being forced to take it off often meant that the soldier had broken some rule, failed in combat, or dishonored the legion. Therefore, it was not just a tactical accessory, it was a banner of identity, a visible line of belonging to the greatest army of the ancient world. Wearing the Baltius was, in silence, accepting the responsibility of being Rome in the flesh. At first glance, the fibula, it may just look like an ordinary brooch, something used to fasten a cape or tunic. But in Rome, nothing was that simple. This small object functioned like the safety pin of antiquity, only with much more personality. It was practical, of course. It secured clothes, preventing them from becoming loose during marches, combats, or even ceremonies. But the way a fibula was made, that really caught attention. Some were very simple, made of bronze. Others are real jewels, made of silver, with stones, engravings, and even personal inscriptions. And here came an interesting detail. The fibula also revealed the soldier's origin, his position, or even his personal taste. It was like a silent but stylish badge. Furthermore, it was one of the few items that the legionary could customize. This gave the armor a hint of individuality amidst its military rigidity. Basically, it was a discreet way of saying, I am part of the legion, but I am also unique. And it wasn't just soldiers who used it. Senators, generals, and even emperors wore their capes with a special fibula. In other words, this small detail went through the entire hierarchy of Rome. After putting on everything, helmet, armor, shield, sword, there was still something that the soldier never forgot: his cape. Made from thick wool, the skirt or the sago, it was the faithful companion on long marches, freezing nights, and torrential rains. It served as a blanket, as a shelter, as an improvised pillow on the hard camp floor. And more than that, it was imposing. The way it fluttered in the wind, how it covered part of the body and hid movements, made the soldier even more feared. The dark red of the cover, chosen not by chance, disguised the blood. It was practicality, but also psychology, a reminder that there was someone there ready for anything. And now that you've seen every detail of this incredible armor, tell me, which of these accessories impressed you the most? Which would you wear if you had to march with the Legion? If this video made you see Roman soldiers with different eyes, leave a like. It is the shield that protects this channel, and don't leave here. Now click on the next video on the screen to continue discovering the secrets that Rome left hidden for centuries. See you there.